Welcome to the Aiki Dojo Podcast. I am David Ito, Chief Instructor of the Aikido Center of Los Angeles. And with me is...
Bill D'Angelo, Aikido 4th Dan.
So, Bill, what should we talk about today?
So, I think the topic for today is Aikido Budo?
The short answer is yes.
Absolutely, yes.
Aikido is Budo.
To answer is Aikido Budo, I guess maybe we should backtrack, especially for people who are not regular listeners of the podcast or not regular practitioners of Aikido. Can we break down for our listeners, what is Budo?
Well, Bu means military. Do means the way.
Way of the military.
Way of the military arts, you know. It's kind of funny, though, because some people think that Budo is the art of killing. And that comes from a title of like a late 70s, early 80s movie documentary called Budo, the Art of Killing. Right? And then they feature all these different Japanese martial arts and all these famous Japanese teachers. Like Shioda Sensei is the one who represents Aikido mainly in there.
Yeah. So
people think of it as the art of killing because Bu means military, and military necessarily means war. Right. It means kill, and war means killing. But the goal of the military is not to kill. Well, supposedly the goal of the military is to keep a country safe.
Right.
Right. Preserve a country. It's not to kill. Right. The U.S. military their job is not to kill. Their job is to protect.
Right.
And so people often think that, oh yeah, Bu, military, all those things mean killing. But in fact, the kanji for Bu is to put down the spear.
It's to put down the spear.
Put down the spear. And so when you think about like, oh, yeah, this is Budo, that is not as Budo, there is no distinction between what is Budo and what is not Budo.
Was there between pre-war and after war, was there a difference in usage between Bujutsu and Budo? Was there some kind of historical shift?
Well, they didn't necessarily call it Bujutsu.
They didn't.
Well, they didn't have Budo or Bujutsu because Budo, the idea of Bu is post-Meiji era.
Okay.
So 1863-ish or something like that, 1860s is when the Meiji era started, and then that's where there were no more samurai wars, so to speak, on the battlefield, and so all these martial arts teachers, people who taught Koryu, swordsmanship, had to find a way to live.
And that's where Budo started.
And that's where they started to take on because before, if you were going to study a martial art, you either had to be part of a clan or part of the family.
Right.
They didn't just let some outside person come in. And all techniques were secret at that time. You only taught your clan, you only taught your family. Because if I taught you, an outsider, my secret technique, you might defeat me.
Right.
Right. And so this idea of Budo is really of a modern era, 1860s on. And so people start to think like, oh, what is Budo? Budo. Well, and then once you add Bujitsu, Jitsu means technique.
Right.
Practices, forms. Do means way.
So in a sense, Budo has Bujitsu underneath it.
Right. Bujitsu is hidden inside the Budo.
Right.
Right. Budo is now a vehicle towards your self-improvement. Before, it was a way of developing you in a way to kill other people, maim, kill on the battlefield. So they had to change that because people are now coming in and paying money to learn martial arts. And then if they're paying money, you can't just break their arm that day. You need them to come back tomorrow.
So why is there a debate about whether Aikido is Budo or not? Because wasn't the word Budo in the name of Aikido at one point, wasn't it? I know that Aikido went through several iterations of what the name was. It had lots of different names through its time.
Well, the reason why is because people think of Budo as killing.
Oh, is that okay?
And then so they go, oh, Aikido doesn't, but no, Budo is a way of developing yourself. It is a way of conflict resolution. It is a way of problem solving that you're learning, right? Striking arts, karate, things like that. They're designed for two things to hit against each other. Your fist hits against their face. Their fist hits against your fist. Aikido doesn't have that,
Right.
right? Well, then maybe not so. I mean, in Aikido, we make their face hit the ground, right? But really, we're not smashing against two human things in order to make it work. You're trying to put the person down. When the person attacks you, well, if you go backwards, it's more of a jitsu. The person grabs you, you just broke their arm,
Right.
right? But then we evolve that to just a joint lock, and then we gain compliance and the altercation. But then, so then you go, oh, that's weak. And then people think, well, if you choke someone or you joint lock them and break their arm, that's strength.
Right.
Smashing them and knocking them out, that's strength.
That in Aikido, we've developed from the earlier forms where you might go straight for the joint break to the choke out to now we've developed to the arrest to the pin to putting the person down. And we're now in this place where people think, oh, because there isn't an obvious killing technique in Aikido, that people say, oh, well, clearly it's not Budo. And that's kind of how we've gotten to this controversy. Or even if it is a controversy, I'm not even sure that it is. But that's because I was asking you, like, how do we find ourselves in this place where people are endlessly debating this, what I think is probably a non-debate.
Well, it's because of if you look at things like the UFC, right? Even people who are skilled in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu are trying to get the knockout because the knockout is more sensational. You get fight of the night money. You get all these things. You think, why don't you just do Jiu-Jitsu on them? Right. And so you have to think, what is sexy? What is in? What is a fad? The reason why, like, if you do karate, or if you, let's say you do a martial art where there's a lot of damage done by the techniques.
Mm-hmm.
In this litigious society, those things are bad. Right. So when the cops pull up and I'm smashing this person's face in with my fist, they pull their guns out, they grab us, and they go, freeze, stop hitting that guy. I'm like, oh no, he tried to mug me. And the guy goes, no, he was mugging me. And then we're just pointing fingers at each other. The cops go, well, take him in and we'll call it mutual.
Sort out later.
Well, they'll say, we'll call it mutual combat first, and then we'll sort it out. And then you're in county jail. They're trying to figure it out. 6 months later, they go, oh, he was in fact robbing you. But then you lost your job, you lost your family, you lost everything, but you won.
Yeah.
Right? So you won this fight. So Aikido kind of understands that. That's where the society is today. You can't just choke someone out. You can't just choke someone and choke them to death. They go, oh, you strangled them. Oh, no. They were robbing me, and I was just defending myself. Well, but you went over the line of defending yourself. You're a lawyer. What's the line to which that's self-defense, and then that's murder?
Yeah, I mean, it's in any self-defense scenario, the facts are always, you have to make sure you don't respond with more than necessary force. But, it's very contextually driven. I mean, if you're home, you generally can respond with lethal force if you're in your home. Outside your home, it gets a lot different.
But then that's that thing, right? Like, it's a context. So if I choke the person to death, and then I go, oh, no, what's the first thing any person who kills another person says? Oh, self-defense.
Yeah. I mean, it's a complex conversation, but I think that, in our, what we're talking about is in a scenario where you're going to be using hand-to-hand combat, I think that what can happen is you have disproportionate response ends up leading the person who's self-defending to do something that results in a disproportionate use of force, which I think of as an accident where the person dies. So imagine you get in a fist fight. You hit someone, they fall and they hit their head and they die. You're going to be guilty for manslaughter or murder. And you didn't intend to do anything other than be in a fist fight, which a lot of times the police won't arrest anybody. But if the person falls and hits their head, now you're in big trouble. And I think that's where, like, this escalation of force where you're using force on force becomes very dangerous. And you and I have spoken about this many times, where once you get into the force melee, you can't predict some of these outcomes if you behave a certain way. And I think that's a lot of what you talk about. It's like the person falls and hits their head. You throw them down too hard. You don't exert restraint. And these outcomes go beyond your control. And now you end up, and then you end up getting arrested.
Well, yeah, that actually happened to someone that I kind of know from high school. So a lot of my friends are police officers, and one of them was in the county jail, working in the county jail, and he's walking by and he looks and goes, "Oh, that's this." We'll call him John from high school. Hey man, what are you doing here?
In jail.
In jail, and the guy, and he's a clean cut Caucasian guy, right? And then amongst all these hardcore gangbangers, so he pulls the guy out and he goes, "What happened?" He goes, "Dude, I was in a bar."
Oh, I hate the story.
And this guy was messing with me all night long, talking trash, goading me. He throws a drink on me, and I just had it. I had enough, and I punched him in the face, dropped him one punch. He falls back, hits his head, dies.
Yeah.
So now I'm in here for manslaughter.
Yeah. That's the perfect scenario. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
And he said that the guy all night long was riding him. But the thing is, he was in force because the guy didn't really do anything to him physically. He was just saying things and threw a drink on him. And then when he punched him one punch.
Yeah, one punch. That's all it takes.
Yeah, now he's in jail while they sorted it out.
So this is so interesting. Like this, I think, is a really good scenario to talk about. Like I'm not a Japanese kanji expert, but like this idea of like Bu putting down the spear. Like I think one of the things that's so interesting about Aikido is not only do you have to contain the scenario, but you have to be able to react in a way where you try to protect your attacker and respond without improper emotion. Because like you said, you're talking about this scenario, the guy's in the bar, this person's like haranguing him all night, and then he loses his emotional control. And bam, all it takes is one shot to respond to that. And I think a lot of what good martial arts training is to keep yourself emotionally in check. And not like with that one moment where you lose control has that horrible result.
So if you're not out fighting wars and you're not out killing people,
how do we make Aikido how do we make Aikido a Budo? What are the things that one has to do to ensure so that we're not going to kill people? We don't want to kill people, but we want to train and make our Aikido as Budo-like as we can, so it's not fake.
Well, see, that's the whole thing, right? So because you don't use this thing on a regular basis in your daily life, fighting people in the street, that's the problem that Budo's having. Oh, well, if I'm never going to fight someone, why would I want to learn how to fight someone?
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, it's not that you're learning how to fight someone. It's that you're learning how to negotiate yourself in conflict, how to stay calm, how to not get into the fight, right? Bu, how to put the spear down, how to not get into the fight. And so that's the benefits of martial arts training, is that it teaches you how to negotiate yourself in stressful situations. And when we were students, everything
was stressful.
Everything was stressful, but when we were students, everything was done as Budo. Every little thing, you could get the shaft for. You couldn't just act any way you wanted to act.
Right.
And you had to be careful because on a certain level, Budo is how to avoid a fight. Right? If we just said, like, very simply, Budo is how to not fight.
So the simple answer is that it's training. You have to train. Your training is your everyday training, whether it's cleaning up, whether it's practicing, whether it's your stretching. That is how you create the mindset of being in a Budo.
Yeah, the mindset of non-fighting. Right, Budo is not about fighting. On the surface or in the beginning things, it's about fighting. But really, what it really comes down to, it's about conflict management, right? So I always tell my kids, everything you do, you have to think, I'm going to have to fight this person.
Right.
And maybe that's bad parenting. I don't know.
What I remember, though, and I think we still have the sign, but I remember the sign that we had at the old dojo. It was very faded, and you could only partially see it, but it said School of Martial Arts.
Yeah.
And I always remember thinking about that sign, that what Furi Sensei was kind of trying to say with that sign, even though you could only partially read it, and it was kind of faded, and but it was, a lot of Aikido schools don't have signs like that. And I wonder if that was kind of a message to remind people that Aikido was a Budo.
It's a Budo, and it reminds people of Budo, but what really is Budo, right? The Budo is the art of how not to get into a fight, right? So when you come into the dojo, or when you used to come into Furi Dojo, everything you did had to be monitored.
Right.
The way you acted, the way, like the other day I got mad at the students and lectured them for 15 minutes because two of the students who were injured were watching class and they were talking while I was talking.
Right. Breaking protocol.
Yeah, breaking protocol. And it's like, is that a bad thing? It's not that big in the grand scheme of things. It doesn't matter if that guy or those two people were talking. But what matters is that if you're going to talk when another person's talking, you're going to show some impoliteness, and then now you're going to have a conflict with that person. So that becomes everything you do in life. If you don't say hello to the teacher when you come in, the teacher thinks you have a problem,
right? And
then a problem ensues. So everything in the dojo is like that. You're trying to stave off a problem that you're going to have with another person because you are unaware or impolite.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I was sitting here thinking about, you're saying that Budo is about avoiding, maybe avoiding is the right word, preventing conflict or having to fight. That
managing conflict.
That the purpose of a really, really effective military is to never have to fight.
Yeah. The best weapon is the one you never use.
Right. A really good military, good martial art is one you never have to use. Your best awareness is to as you go into a situation, is to see every possible permutation, every possible risk, and get yourself out of that situation.
Most people that look at a martial art don't do a martial art.
What do you mean by that?
So, like, if you watch, a movie with a guy doing martial art, he's like catching a freaking hatchet in midair, catching an arrow and all those things, and that's really glamorous. But that will never work. You could never throw a knife at someone and have them catch it and then throw it back. You could never cut an arrow mid-flight in half.
Right.
Right. The movements per second, the feet per second, it's like and you could cut.
Impossible.
It's possible. It's just highly improbable.
Right.
Right. So you start to think that martial arts is super romantic.
Right.
You're going to punch someone in the face. Well, most times when you punch someone in the face, you break your own hand.
Right.
Because when you're in the gym and you're working out doing your karate or your martial arts, your boxing, your hands are wrapped. Like when Mike Tyson, he fought Mitch Blood Green in the ring, he beat him to a pulp. But then later on, Mitch Green found Tyson on the street. And he was in some type of like a clothing store. Him and Tyson fought. Tyson hit him in the face, dropped him, broke his hand.
Yeah.
So, that's, I think, like, you have, if you're going to train the way you're going to fight, as all these people say, you're wearing gear, the floor's padded, there's a bathroom, you sweep the floor of impediments, you make sure the right song is on the radio. All the conditions for a good class are there.
Right.
But that's not what real martial arts is about. That's not what real fighting is about. Real fighting is ugly, dirty, bloody, messy, scary, all those things that it's nothing like the dojo. It's nothing like any dojo, training hall, or gym where you go, oh, you got the bag that doesn't move. You got the guy who doesn't really throw the punch, right? There's no blood there. There's no dust.
So what do you think it is about a class, an Aikido class or a karate class or judo class? A really well-taught class. It doesn't have to be Aikido, but Aikido, we do Aikido, so probably best to talk about Aikido. what is it about a really well-taught class in a contained environment in a really well-run dojo that teaches people to be really good at understanding and preventing conflict?
Well, it's in behavior. First is behavior, because before the actual conflict, there's all these things that build up
That
to
lead
it.
up to it.
Did you park in a spot that's the darkest spot in the parking lot, right? Are you carrying 2 bags, a purse, a bag, and a laptop while you're walking to the car in the darkest spot in the parking lot? Are you stopping off at the local biker bar wearing your I Hate Bikers t-shirt to go use the restroom? See, like, you're managing the conflict before you even get to the conflict. So that's what you're learning in a martial art. You don't, when you come into a dojo, you don't bang your bag against the wall or the door. Your shoes are set a certain way. You bow to show respect. All these things happen to teach you to manage the conflict before the conflict ever gets there, right? So if you know that you have to have your bag packed before you go to sleep that night, so that when in the morning you get up, so you don't forget it, that helps you be prepared.
Right.
So then later on, you go, oh, I should park here in the darkest spot in the parking lot, all the way in the back, knowing I'm gonna have all these bags. Probably not the best idea. Probably better to find a safer parking spot. So your mind becomes attuned to conflict management. I don't even like Bill, but I still said good morning because I don't want a problem.
Right.
I'm going to do this thing because I don't want a problem, right? And so everything in Budo becomes like that. I mean, all these stories from the old days are about managing conflict. Oh, is the sensei mad? Is the sensei happy? And that's where, like, in the old days, the teacher was your main adversary.
Right.
Right. You couldn't even say that they were your frenemy. On a certain level, they were your enemy.
Right.
Because you were supposed to think that up until a certain point, the teacher hated you, didn't like you at all, and then roughed you up, and then you were like, oh, I better be careful. So then you're always on eggshells.
Right.
So
as a training tool.
As a training tool, so that you learn how to manage conflict. You would learn to feel, teacher's not in a good mood today, so I better behave a little bit better. Oh, I'm injured, so I should, manage that. Today they wear a big red piece of tape on their shoulder. So it's your behavior at the dojo that you learn how to manage conflict.
So do you remember, I know that we had many memories of stressful incidents, but is there something from your training as a student that you remember as being a really illustrative of a time that was a turning point for you in what you would consider Budo training that changed how you saw Aikido as Budo before you became a teacher?
Not really.
Not really.
It was one of those things where you either fall in line or you fall out.
Yeah.
So when I started, I was very undisciplined and, just acted any old way and trying to kiss up to the sensei. I'd be like, oh, and I'd just start talking, and he would say, like, what?
Yeah.
And then he would get mad at me. So I learned how to not to just talk. But there's several times where you would get in trouble, or someone else would get in trouble so badly that you go, I'm never going to make that mistake again.
Right.
Like one time I heard that one of the students lost their keys while they're taking sensei out. And then while they were taking sensei out, they lost the keys, and then they freaked out. And then sensei went off on that person. And so I was like, oh, I better figure out something to do. So then I just taped a spare key to my wiring harness under my car, which is probably still there. So whoever's driving my old truck
has extra keys.
Has an extra key under there if I ever want to steal it. So that if that ever happened, I would just pop under the car, untape it, and then drive away, right? There's all those things that you think of. You hear these stories.
Yeah.
Or something happens right in front of you. Like once a student forgot their hakama to a demonstration, and then they drove all the way to the martial arts store to get a hakama and drove all the way back, and then the demonstration was canceled. Not only did Sensei just went off on that person. So after that, I go, I'll just keep a spare uniform behind the seat of my truck at all times, because I don't want that to happen. And so, you become very measured that way. And then that starts to become like a lifestyle to where everything you do is about Budo training.
Right.
You know, and we're students, there are all these rules. You're not allowed to have your sword in your car. You can't keep it in the car.
Right.
For one, it damages it, but two, it could get stolen. So we would go to lunch or something, and there'd be guys with their sword bags at the table because you're not allowed to keep it in the car. It had to always be cared for because it's your sword. That is the one thing between life and death, right? And so everything we did in the old days, you had to have that type of thinking. Like I heard this story that Sensei once checked a person's bag to see how they folded their hakama and their uniform before class. And I don't even know if that story is true because I did not see it. But I heard this is like a story from the 80s. And so after that, whenever I packed my bag, I always made sure my uniform was folded a specific way. My hakama was folded. Everything was folded and nice so that if you opened it up, you could see, oh, this person took care in packing their bag. And I always for like the whole time I was a student, thought that Sensei would be waiting behind the door, grab my bag, open it up, check it, and then go off on me. And so I always packed my bag like that. Today, students don't do that. They just jam their uniform in their bag. But in the old days, I always made sure that would happen so that I wouldn't get in trouble.
Dinged. Yeah.
Someone told me that story that it happened in the 80s before I got there. Or another one was when at the end of class, when they were saying thank you to Sensei, someone said, "Onegaishimasu," and Sensei went, "Oh," and then taught another half hour.
That I believe. I think that's totally believable.
But I mean, I think the main moment when I figured out that this was Budo was I was a white belt. I'd only been doing Aikido for just a little while, less than a year,
Yeah.
6 months or something. And so I was only doing Aikido for a little while. And then the Boy Scouts showed up.
Okay.
The Boy Scouts showed up, and then Sensei lectured to the Boy Scouts for feels like 5 hours. And every person sat Seiza the whole time. And so you sat there for what, felt like
time.
hours in Seiza. And then Sensei's like, well, and you're like, oh, any questions? And the kids would ask questions about martial arts, and I'd be like,
Oh, no.
you little brats, get out of here. But nobody fell out. Everyone sat there stoic, straight posture, sitting Seiza. And this was like 1990, 1991.
Wow.
And then I'd never done anything like that. So I was just sitting there going like, and you can't, nobody's face showed any emotion.
Yeah.
And so I just sat there too going like, biting my tongue going, oh my God, this is killing me. And then, okay, goodbye. And then Sensei goes, okay, next. And then starts teaching class.
Yeah, and you can't move.
And then you got up and fell over. And then you like, you brats. But that's the moment, maybe that's the moment but I noticed then in that time that I go, oh, this is serious.
Yeah.
This is a serious place. Everybody might be laughing afterwards, but there was nobody who broke protocol.
Yeah. I was obviously not here yet because I started in 94, but I remember I'm sure you were at this practice, but I remember a very similar, but not quite as severe incident where we had a monthly, the monthly seminar, 6:30 a.m. And he spoke for like 20 minutes at the start of the class, and everyone was in Seizan. It was a cold winter morning, and people were just like stuck in Seiza for 20 minutes. And he was doing it on purpose to see if people would not move. And then I think he went immediately to like Shomenuchi or Riminage, and it was a winter morning, so your legs got frozen, and people got up, and everyone was stumbling. But no one switched out to sitting Indian style.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like even today, even now, I always do at least 30 minutes of Seiza sitting every day.
Yeah.
To try to keep that Seiza.
Yeah, keep the ability to
sit like that, because you go to Japan or something like that, and you got to sit Seiza, right? And so those are the things that's that Budo training.
Right.
You think ahead, and then you try to make sure that you're ready.
Yeah.
And so, it was just one of those things. Like only a few people bring weapons today, but back in the day, very few people brought weapons. because there were weapons at the dojo. Because the thing is, if you had a weapon, you got to manage it.
Right. That's another thing to take care of.
And but I still have that same idea of like, if you carry it, you got to take care of it. Right? Like, you know, like we in the old days, we never drank water during class, even though there was a water jug right off the mat. I never drank water.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, if you drink water, you'd have to go to the bathroom. And there's no bathroom, there's no public bathroom at the dojo.
Right.
So because there's no public bathroom at the dojo, do you want to go do that? I don't want to cross sensei.
Right.
Because you got to walk right past him. He's sitting at his terminal. He has to push back. You have to walk past him to use his restroom.
Right.
And then you knock. He's like, yes. You go, can I use the restroom? Ah. He makes this audible sigh.
Yeah.
Pushes back, crosses his arms all upset, and then you come out, he's still crossed over, and then you come out, and then more than likely he'll just start yelling at you, this thing about you, the thing you did the other day, and you're like, oh my god,
not worth it.
So you go, not worth it to go to the bathroom. So I never, even to this day, like during class, I never drink water. I never drink water, but between classes, and maybe that's to my detriment, and maybe as I get older I shouldn't do that, but I do that so I don't have to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Right. So these things, there's these, your mind becomes about Budo, right? It becomes about conflict management. So everything you do, should I stand this way? Should I say hello? Should I not say hello? Should I wear a dirty uniform? You know, in the old days, if you wore a dirty uniform, Sensei and the other students get on your butt.
Yeah.
You know, and then Sensei would say something, and then everyone would laugh that your uniform was dirty or needs repair. And so you're like, well, I'll just keep that thing in repair. So everything becomes like this mindset. And that's the Budo mindset you're trying to get today, where if you have a fear, you face the fear. You have a conflict, you meet that conflict. You never shy away, you never run away, you never look away.
Yeah, I think that especially the facing your fears is very important.
Yeah. And so, Sensei teaches Koshinage, you go, well, I guess I'm break falling today.
Right.
But in the old days, you'd be like, well, I don't know. I got the shoulder thing. Oh, my big toe is broken.
Right.
There was never anything like that. I used to go into like slam pits, mosh pits. I used to have a great time doing, randori in there. And then one day I hyperextended 2 or 3 of these fingers really badly. And then you had class. And the whole time people grab it, I would just be like, ooh. And then I'd have to grab them like, oh my God, this hurts so bad. And I go, well, I guess I don't do that anymore.
Right.
So, like buying a motorcycle. There was a student who had this really nice Triumph Bonneville, like older one, not like these newer ones. And he was telling us how he laid it down and it, scratched this thing, and nothing really bad happened, but he's going to sell it. And I go, I'll buy it. Right across, Sensei goes, no, you won't. And then he goes, you're not allowed to buy it. You're not allowed to sell it to him.
Wow.
And I was like, but I, oh, okay. And then the guy even on the down low, the guy wouldn't sell it to me, right? And you go, oh man, like, but that's that Budo mindset that you were required to have at all times. You could buy that motorcycle, but you're going to get injured, and then it's going to be a detriment to the dojo. Well, can't do that.
Yeah.
If there was people that said, oh, I'm going to go skiing, and then Sensei goes, then don't come back. And you go, oh, I guess I'm not going skiing, right? Because you had to have that Budo training mindset at all times. And then how do you have that if you're free to do whatever you want? How do you have that if you just teach whatever you want to teach or you learn whatever you want to learn? How do you have that if you jump from dojo to dojo, place to place? How do you have that if you run away at the moment of conflict, the moment of negativity? Well, people are mean to me. Well, I quit. No, you have to learn to get over it, right? You got to learn to cozy up with them and then stab them in the, when you get in close. No, I'm just kidding. That's the Budo mindset. No, the Budo mindset is you learn how to turn that around.
Well, I think one of the things you just said right there is, I think, key, which is that in order to get the benefit of Budo, you have to be willing to come back over and over and over again, and sit with uncomfortability. That it's going to take a long time, and a lot of it will not be pleasant.
Yeah, like let's say for instance, your very first Budo teacher got you to where you are, but then you realize that person is flawed and that person can't take you any farther. So you go, well, I'm going to find somebody better. That's the modern mindset. The old mindset was, this person got me this far, I'm going to show this person loyalty, and I'm going to stay till the end.
Yeah.
But people don't do that. They go, wait, where's the better ride at?
Yeah.
And that's
That's the
not
contemporary
Yeah.
way of looking at it.
and that's not the Budo mindset, right? The Budo mindset is that you look into, you say, the Budo mindset is about sacrificing.
Right.
Sacrificing what you think is fun or what you want for the greater good, for your own benefit. I could park closer by, but it's a dark parking spot, so something bad could happen. So I'm going to park farther away where it's better lit.
It's interesting what you're saying here also, which is you're sitting with uncomfortability, you're loyal to your teacher, but there's also this aspect too that you're there to train with your partners.
Well, you're there to train with your partners, but the thing is that it's that uncomfortability that it's uncomfortable for you.
Right.
Because your mind says your ego says it's uncomfortable.
Right.
But the thing is that uncomfortableness is the way.
Right.
You think, well, I'm supposed to be uncomfortable at all times? No. Fear creates uncomfortableness.
Right.
That hesitance, you think, well, I better see what this is all about. So let's say you're with your teacher's not very good, the teacher gets you to a certain level, and they think, well, I better find somebody better. That's not the Japanese way.
Right.
The Japanese way is, this is your teacher, you stay with that teacher. Because good, bad, right or wrong, that is your choice. This is the choice that you made.
Yeah.
You don't have the luxury of finding someone better. Because the best teacher is the one that's the most unreasonable. Because the thing that you're at that point maybe confronting is loyalty. Because anybody could come up with a reason to leave. Oh, well, there's too much sun coming in for this window, so that's why I left that dojo. The teacher got to be this way. Oh, well, that just shows your character. Oh, well, I found something better. And that's the hard part. It's not about finding something better. It's about working through your stuff that you would normally just run away. Oh, I'm going to divorce my wife. There's a hotter person. No, that's just your mind's. That's a construct of your mind. The harder road is to stay and work it out. The harder road is to sit with the uncomfortableness and try to figure out why does this make me feel uncomfortable?
You're talking about a very high level of self-awareness.
That's what Budo is. Budo is a very high level method of self-awareness that you learn to feel the energy in the room, then there's a problem. You learn to notice how people sit, and then you notice that maybe there's a problem.
That's very hard to do.
But that's the way it's supposed to be. It's called like kuki wo yomeru. You have to be able to read the air.
Yeah.
Read the air that, something's wrong here. Oh, let's leave.
Yeah. I'm just from my own sense of things, like people, I think generally, as you train, as the years go by, wanting to get to self-awareness is a goal, but that getting to self-awareness is you have to fight your ego.
The whole time you're fighting your ego. Your ego says, this is hot. Your ego says, this is boring. Oh,
my body hurts.
My body hurts. This guy cranked. Oh, I'm too old for this. Those are all just stories that you tell yourself so you can get back on that couch and turn on Netflix.
Yeah.
Right?
Netflix is good.
Yeah, Netflix is good. But the true conflict that you want to address is inside of you. That's why the only real opponent is you. Oh, can you choke someone? Can you beat up people in the bar? I don't care about that. That is so fleeting. Maybe because I used to be like that, but I'll tell you right now, all that stuff's fleeting. It has nothing to do with beating people up. Anybody can do that. A good swift kick in the nuts works pretty much all the time. A good sucker punch is the best technique.
Yeah.
Right? Those anyone can do. Anybody can pull out a gun. Anybody can pull out a knife. But not anybody can walk away when their ego has been attacked.
Right.
To be able to walk, when someone says, you're a wimp, Aikido sucks, and then you can go, oh, that's nice, and just turn around and walk away. Most people can't do that. You go, how dare you? And you rise up against them.
Right.
Right? You go, welcome to the next Steven Seagal movie. And then you start, chop-socking them. what is that even going to do for you?
Yeah.
You know, Jet Li is this really badass martial artist, right? During one of the tsunamis, I think he was in the Maldives or something like that, and the hotel was flooding, and a chair was going toward his daughter, and he kicked it. Hiya! He kicked it away, but broke his foot, right? So I mean, like, yeah, it's just a technique, right? Like,
Yeah.
he saved his daughter with the martial arts technique, but see how, like, what would happen if the next chair comes, or the floodwater got too high, and all those things. Most likely, he should maybe have not been there. Most likely, he should have foreseen that, oh, what is this water coming in the building? His martial arts experience should have prevented him from being in that situation,
Yeah.
right? So, but that's that thing. Like, you know, this has nothing to dig on Jet Li. I'm a huge fan, but it's just that what is the martial arts supposed to be? What is Budo? Budo was this awareness that you can see the things that a normal person can't see. You can smell the things that a normal person can't smell. You can hear the normal things that people can't.
So I got a question for you. I mean, you're an Aikido teacher. You run a dojo. Aikido and all martial arts. You know, we've talked about what I'm about to ask you about. Yoga now is the biggest activity for men and women in the world practically now. Where does Budo fit in to society today, as you see it, as a because I know that you're a former sports trainer, you're high-level sports trainer, you're a doctor, Chinese medicine doctor, and you're a high-level Budo teacher and practitioner. Where do you see it fitting in to society today? Where would you like it to fit?
Well, Aikido is what yoga is without music.
Hmm.
So yoga with music is a construct of the West. If they have a little bit of music, they have the people playing that organ thing in yoga. But traditionally, yoga is done without music. But they use music today. See, like Aikido would be way more popular if you put on a little bit of yoga music, because the music helps you detach from the moment of suffering that when you're doing warrior pose.
Right.
Right. You fall, kind of, your mind falls into the music, but in real yoga, there's no music.
Right.
Right. So Aikido's like that too. So what's hard about Aikido is it makes you look inward, because you're not validating yourself by smashing someone in the face.
Right.
You're being thrown, and you're throwing and being thrown. So you have to learn how to manage that. You have to learn how to manage your anxiety of being thrown, your being out of shape, your fatigue of being thrown. You have to manage being thrown harder than you want to be thrown. All these things you have to manage, and that's why it's all mental. Everything else is just your hand moving in certain different ways. Your foot kicking faster. The older you get, the slower you will kick. The older you get, the slower you will punch. Right? Mike Tyson has been doing like that. He did a comeback fight, right, against Roy Jones Jr. For the first round or two, he looked pretty good.
Yeah.
And then as the later rounds, he started to look horrible. And he even said, "Oh yeah, I'm great for 2 rounds."
Yeah.
Right? But that's the thing. Like,
You probably don't want to be hit by him in those first 2 rounds.
yeah, or even the later rounds, because he still can probably hit hard. It's just you can get out of the way.
Right.
But that's the thing. If you're going to base it all on destroying other people, it's faster, cheaper, takes less time, and all this stuff. Just buy a gun and get proficient. Boom, boom. Oh yeah, I still know how to shoot a gun.
But where would you like to put Aikido and Budo in our society today? Like, as a teacher, where would you like to put it?
I don't know where you put it, because the thing is that everything is so fast, so amateur driven, right? You know, you're watching some guy on the internet who's got 5,000 views on his
and he has no expertise.
and he's a white belt, right? You're a white belt, you don't know anything, right? But they go, well, who has time to become an expert? But and this thing occupied me for 25 seconds, and I either liked it or I didn't, right?
Yeah.
And because I like this person, or I feel bad for them, I liked it. And then, ooh, that person got 50,000 likes, and you go, yeah, but did you look at the technique? Did you look at this thing? Any person could destroy them. Yeah, but they made a video and everyone liked it. I watch videos and I just go, oh my God, what are they doing? Because you look at it and some of it's fancy, but it can still be fancy, but with the proper fundamentals.
Right.
But the thing is that people are losing the fundamentals. It's, as Terry Dobson say, it looks a lot like dancing.
Yeah.
Right. And I look at it and I go, oh my God, that's sexy. And then but that is not martial arts.
Right. It's not Budo.
Yeah. Budo is the smallest, shortest path to the victory. So if you are spinning in a circle doing this with your finger and do all that stuff, you're going to get destroyed because you're only going to get half turn on this person.
Yeah.
Furuya Sensei said that what you practice in the dojo, you can reproduce only 60% on the street. And it's probably less than that.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're already practicing at 40%, that's what's your number going to be like when
10%.
When the SHIT hits the fan? Yeah. And then what ends up happening? Now I gotta punch him in the face, and I gotta choke him out, and I gotta like tear out their throat, Patrick Swayze style, because technique didn't work. Yeah. But how much time and effort did you put in the technique? And if this is real Budo, how did you even get into how did you even get into that conflict? Shouldn't you have smelled it before it happened? Like, something's going on here. Hey, we better get out of here. But no, I want to be in the conflict, because if I'm in this conflict and someone films it on, and I beat the person and someone films it,
I got attention.
Oh man, I'm gonna go viral, because I gotta go viral, because that'll make me awesome.
Yeah,
it doesn't make you anything, right? If you want it to be sophisticated, it's quiet, fast, and effective.
Right.
So like in the old days, all these little things that you had to premeditate before you came to the dojo. Right? There was no bathroom, so you had to go to the bathroom ahead of time. The dojo had no air conditioning or heating, so it's going to be hotter. So you have to manage your hydration, right? You had to manage your kikogi. You have to manage what time you get there. If you're a senior, you have to get there with a certain amount of time to help with the preparations to open the dojo.
Right.
You can't just show up 5 minutes before and then get dressed and come on the mat. You're going to get in trouble. You had to pre-prepare your plans for the evening, because then maybe Sensei goes, oh, let's go to dinner. And then when you go to dinner with Sensei, you're going to get home at like 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, very late.
So all those things you had to pre-prepare before you got to the dojo to manage yourself to have a good class, right? You go, oh, I've got a goatee, right? And then Sensei's like, he would say, your goatee looks like the dog's butt. And then so you go, you shave it off, because you just don't want that conflict, right? If you had there are people that they're starting to grow their hair long, and Sensei would be like, what's going on with your hair? And then you go, I'm growing it out. And Sensei goes, no, you're not. Yeah, like I'm growing it like Kanai Sensei. And then Sensei goes, if you show up tomorrow with your hair long, don't ever come back.
I forget, this is so anecdotal, but it reminds me of like, it got popular when people were wearing their hair with the
ponytail?
Yeah, the Aikido.
Yeah. Oh yeah, if any of us like came with a ponytail, Sensei would be like, get out.
The Aikido ponytail?
The Steven Seagal ponytail. Yeah, like I remember one student was telling someone how he's going to get a tattoo with the dojo moan and crest on it. And the Sensei goes, what are you going to do? And he goes, I'm getting a tattoo. And the Sensei goes, no, you're not. You get that tattoo, don't come back. But like all those things. Like,
oh my God.
You went to him and spoke to him, and like you were, and so like, but then that also creates other cultures where there's a culture of telling on each other.
Right.
Which Sensei probably should have stopped, which is that, oh, you tell me something private, I tell Sensei on you to suck up to Sensei.
Right.
Right? But yeah, you shouldn't do that stuff too, because again, all those things are showing your level of ability, your level of character.
Right.
One person who's a teacher today goes, yeah, I used to be funny. I would tell Sensei, because I thought it was funny. But what he was really saying is, I'm showing you how I have lack of true character by telling Sensei something you told me in private.
Right.
Like one time, my grandmother was a calligraphy teacher, and she said, oh, Furuya Sensei's calligraphy is very nice, almost like a Japanese person's. And then I told this other student, and the student told Sensei, and then Sensei called me in the office and went off on me. And I was just like, why did that person tell it? And then I go, dude, why did you do that? He goes, oh, I just thought it was funny, so I told Sensei. And I was like, you POS, right? Like, yeah, you thought it was funny because you were sucking up to Sensei.
Yeah.
Right? But like all these little things that you had to pre-prepare, You have to meter how much you're going to talk about yourself, so that sensei doesn't go, "What are you doing? What are you going? What are you going to
So
do?"
you just talked about the self, and we were saying that Budo involves this development of our self-awareness. What is in that process of developing your self-awareness, tearing down the ego? What's the hardest part for the practitioner?
I would say it's fatigue.
Fatigue. Mental fatigue or mental fatigue?
Mental, emotional fatigue. Haven't I developed enough? How much more do I need to develop? Right? So you think, God, like the leaps and bounds that I've done and changed as a person. My wife says I'm such a better person today. Is that enough? Right? And so you think, but it all depends on what your goal is. What is your goal? What do you want to become? What do you want to do? Right? You want to go to work and be lauded with praise because you're such a good worker? Or did you get those skills? You got those skills at your Aikido dojo because you learned how to be this thing. Oh, I got my boss coffee and he praised me because I did a really good job because I noticed that he gets 2 creams, 2 sugars. And everyone else just brings it black. But where did you get that awareness? I got that awareness when I was as a student. I got that awareness being your deshi and then getting in trouble, but now I use that awareness to suck up to some other teacher, to suck up to some other person in my life.
Right. So you're saying fatigue is the enemy of the student.
Yeah, because you become, how much do you want to develop? How much of yourself do you want to confront?
Because it's an infinite path.
It's to the moment you go,
the moment you die.
I got it. And you
croak.
You croak. But you're trying to make your life richer and richer and richer.
So do you personally keep a journal or any other way to keep an inventory for yourself on your development?
No, I don't. I mean, I am a self-development junkie. Mm-hmm. I've always been that way. So I'm constantly trying to develop myself, constantly becoming aware of something and then trying to iron it out of my personality. Mm. And sometimes I journal it so I don't, not to, as a means not to forget it, but it's something where
work it out.
To work it out a little bit.
Yeah.
But I mean, I constantly thinking about this thing. How come I keep saying, and then I really try to stop doing that.
Yeah.
Right. And there's someone, people go, you don't want me to tell you the things I see. I go, I would love it. I would love if some person were to say to me, you know what? I've noticed this about you. And I go, really? And then I would try to iron that thing out. First, I would think, is that true? Is that person just BSing me to BS me? And then I would really try to iron it out.
Yeah.
Because I really, really, really want to iron those things out. Every little thing.
Yeah.
I would say my superpower is my ability to be observant. So when I see something, I go, oh. And then I try to work it out. Or if I see it, and then of course I see it in other people, and then I go, hey, you ever thought about not doing that? And then they go, I don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah.
Since you just found out my secret.
But that's hard because a lot of people that come in as students, there's different levels of commitment.
Yeah, and so today I used to just point it out. Hey, you know what your problem is?
Right.
But now I go, I just look away. Because I've realized through being a teacher and being an acupuncturist, people don't want to know. Even if
I don't mean to laugh. I don't mean to laugh. But I get it. I understand.
And even if they ask, they don't want to know. They're just talking to talk.
Yeah.
And so today I just go, I don't know, man. Right.
Yeah.
So, and then I question myself, like, how the hell do I know?
Yeah.
How do I know that's the problem? And then I just try not to look away. I mean, I try to look away because by pointing it out, it only brings me pain.
Right.
It messed you up, and then you leave. It messes this guy up, they leave, and you go, they won't even, because they got to be ready to confront that.
So we have this month tests coming up, black belt tests coming up. We have two or four, maybe 4 tests. Our tests, and I don't want to go off in the rabbit hole of tests too much, but I just wanted to ask a question. Do you see a test as part of the Budo training process?
On a certain level.
Yeah.
Like in this dojo, we only tested for Shodan. But now we test for all ranks. But the reason why we only tested for Shodan is because it was supposed to be about training, not about rank.
Right.
Right. The hard part is that testing becomes this thing where you're trying to accumulate rank. Right. You're trying to get things. First degree, second degree, third degree, fourth degree. Those don't mean anything. And in fact, those things hold you back because you start to use those as platforms or plateaus in which to reside over others. There should be no rank. It should only be about how you develop yourself.
Right.
What can you do mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually? That's it. Not the number on your belt
attached.
or the thing that's in your Yudansha book. That's what holds people back. I am better than you because I am 6th degree black belt, even though all I did was suck up to my teacher and got 6. Well,
Right.
I'm better than you because I have Shodan and they hold me back from 6. Those are all just games.
Right.
All those things are only things that hold you back. They hold you back from the way because you hide behind those so that you don't have to follow the way.
But the test itself, if it goes the way you want it to go, could be an experience that helps someone chip away at the sort of ego monster, right?
Well, no, it's not the ego monster, at fear.
At fear.
If you do not want to take the test, you're afraid, you will have to confront the test.
So why do you think, and they'll remain nameless, I wouldn't ever mention their names, but there are students who, this happens in every dojo. Like you have students that are not black belts, but they're perennial first cues who are like, I don't ever want to take the test. Or you have first and second degree black belts who say, I don't ever want to take second or third dan test. Why do you think that is? And it's almost like a caricature. Every dojo has that person.
Well, it really all depends on what's going on inside. If you don't really want to take it because you just don't want to take it, or because you're not really into rank, that's fine. But what if you didn't really want to take it because you don't want the conflict? You don't want to have to stand up. You don't want to have to be on a stage and perform. Then you have to take the test.
Interesting. So it's the reason.
It's the motivation for that. In my day, I didn't care about rank and black belts and all that stuff because I just wanted to know a person.
You wanted to know the technique.
If a person came in and they're like 5th or 6th, I'd be like, party on.
Right.
And then I would rush them because I want to. Okay, if this is size 6 dan, I want to see what 6 dan feels like.
Right.
Right. I didn't care what about the rank. But the thing is, I also took a really hard first degree black belt test.
Right.
Right. And then you're just like, wow, that was really rough. But then I go, oh, I could do that all the time. Like if you said right now, hey, you got to take this 6 dan test, I'd be like, okay.
Right.
Because it's just movement. To me, Aikido and all this stuff, it's just movement.
Right.
What really you have to get into is that the mindset and the fear and all these things that you get into. I have to do this, I got to do this. And then to confront those fears.
Right.
Because that's what, remember, Budo is all about
Fear.
managing the conflict, but also managing your mind.
Yeah.
Right? Learning
absolutely.
how do you act? What do you do when you're shoved? What's the first thing that happens when you get shoved? Besides your physical reaction. Panic, fear, all these things. And you got to go,
adrenaline.
That's what I gotta work on.
Yeah.
Right? And supposedly, like when Bruce Lee fought Jack Man or whatever his name is, he didn't do so well. He won, I guess, but then he was like, I froze.
Interesting.
And then from there, that's where he came up with this idea of there are no forms and all this stuff, but whatever. But the first thing he thought was like, I froze.
Yeah. So he wanted to attack that idea, like to break down that mental reaction.
How do I, and see, you think, oh, Budo has no place in this world. Well, it does. When you're in your car and it flips over 10 times and is slid down a cliff, and then you got to crawl up to the road with your broken leg to save your kids, that's Budo training.
Yeah.
The strength that you'll have to crawl up that road with a broken leg to get safety to save your family, that's Budo.
Yeah.
But then if you never have to do that, you'll never know if you're
challenged.
Yeah, you'll never know if you're that type of person. Martial arts training teaches you to be that type of person.
So the best test, in a sense, is the test you really don't want to take.
Yeah, it's the thing you don't want to confront. Ooh, I don't want to do that. That's too scary. That's too painful.
So how do you get people, I guess you can't, but how do you get people to take that second or third dan test, which they really don't want to take, that's going to be hard?
Well,
very hard.
The thing is, you should have microdosed them
along the way.
Not with testing, but with everything about Budo. You come to class, your big toe's stubbed. You tape it up and you do your best.
Yeah.
As opposed to, my toe stub, I guess I will just watch Pawn Stars today. Right? That's not Budo. Budo is, well...
So in other words, it should be, the pass, it should be, the slope should be kind of like this rather than...
incrementally,
slamming them on the test at this huge...
Yeah, tomorrow you will take the second dan test. What? Right? No, it's that it's metered. Because you're trying to desensitize yourself from uncomfortableness.
Right.
Oh, and then every miniature step up the ladder, you start to address things that are harder and harder, and harder and harder, and then you'll go, wow. 20 years ago, I never would have done this.
Yeah.
Like one where I really learned this, or really came to become aware of it, was I had to do this ropes course for a graduate school program. Mm-hmm. And before that, I always thought of myself as kind of a chicken. That when things got scary or hard, I would just run away.
Yeah. And
then I started doing martial arts. So then when I got there, everybody there was a martial artist in this graduate school class.
Really?
All Chinese styles.
Okay.
And I was like, oh man. And then you had to climb up on these rope ladders, swing across these things and all stuff. And I remember climbing up to the very first one. It was probably 20 feet off the ground.
Oh man.
Yeah, probably 20 feet off the ground. Climb up this little ladder. And then I looked down and I went, oh man. Before I started martial arts, I would have run away from this.
Yeah.
I would have said, I have to use the restroom, and just hid in the bathroom the whole time. And I go, wow, this is really incredible. And then I started just doing all kinds, like
crazy stuff.
One of them, you had to jump off this 20 or 30 foot platform. And I was like looking down, and people were like, oh my gosh. And they're like, who wants to go first? So I went first, and then I'm on the top, and everyone's, and I just went, I looked down, and I just turned around, did a Jesus move, and just fell off backwards. And people were like, oh my God, that's crazy. And then I was like, I am liberated. This does not scare me at all. And then I started climbing the stuff, swinging off these things, doing all this stuff. They go, who wants to go first? I'll go first.
Yeah.
Who wants to go up and help that person? I'll go up and help that person. And then I was like, I was so astonished that, again, let's see, that was 10 years before I would have given up.
Yeah, but you were like, I'm going to confront my fear straight on.
Well, I didn't have fear.
The fear was gone.
When I got to the top, I realized, oh my God, I'm not afraid.
Yeah.
This is nothing. And then I'm like doing like freaking cartwheels and all this stuff, and people are like, this guy's crazy. And then I remember I was going up on this thing where you had to kind of crab crawl on 2 ropes.
Interesting.
And I heard someone go, let's go, Aikido man, show us what you got. And I was all ding, and then I was the only one that completed it. And then and then the rest, like I said, all these guys were all kung fu teachers, martial artists, and they're all falling out. I mean, I didn't talk any trash, but in my mind I was like, way to go, kung fu guy. Oh, look at that. Tai Chi, not so good. But that's that thing, like you don't know what you have until you get there. Right, and so if you incrementally face your fears in the dojo, they say cry in the dojo, laugh on the battlefield. Right. And so you get up there and you're like, oh my gosh, like I could do this. I'm not afraid. This is incredible. And then I just said, I'm liberated, and I just went crazy. Right, and then
but before that, you had years of really hard training.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You might not know until it happens with what you really learn.
Right.
And what is Budo about? If Budo is not about fighting, well, it is about fighting.
Yeah.
But the person you're fighting is yourself.
Yeah.
And yourself knows all your moves. And then it could talk you out of it. Oh, well, I haven't had Burger King in a while. I should probably just go and eat Burger King. Right? And then it's just a story that you made up. Well, the reason why I ran away is because I saw a Burger King, and I haven't had Burger King in probably 2 decades, so I thought I should try the Whopper, and that's why I didn't show up to the fight.
Right.
You just make up some lame story to validate the reason why you didn't show up. But the real reason why you didn't show up was fear and the thing you didn't want to confront, right? And so again, it's about this conflict management. The thing that you're managing is yourself. You get all the way to the end, you don't realize till you look backwards and go, oh my gosh, look at the person I've become. I never would have done that before. I never would have asked that girl out. I never would have asked for a raise. I never would have done this thing. Right? There was a guy in the dojo way back in the day who he was a bus driver. And then once he got his black belt, he didn't tell me the story, but someone else told me the story. But once he got his black belt, he said, I just realized that I could do anything. And then he went on to become a doctor.
Wow. That's an
And you're
incredible
like,
story.
whoa, man, like that person, you realized their capacity by martial arts training.
Yeah. I think it's interesting, you know, I've talked to some people, I have friends that we talk about Aikido and my you know, time in the dojo and people, you know, that don't study martial arts or who have had interest in martial arts but didn't stay with it. They, you know, they'll say to me like, you know, wow, I can't believe that you trained for 30 years and, you know, you stayed and got rank and did all these things. And to me, it doesn't seem like that much just because I've been doing it for a very long time. It's just what I do. But I think that it, you know, when you stay and you practice hard, it can be a really significant part of your life.
Yeah, because it is the fuel that you use, or the methodology that you use to become better at whatever it is you do.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's why martial arts is supposed to benefit not just you on the mat, but in every part of your daily life.
Yeah.
And then when it doesn't, you kind of go, wait, what's going on there, right?
I think it has this incredible transformative capability. I think you really capture it when you talk about, you know, development of your ego, has a direct correspondence to how effective it is as a Budo. And that psychological aspect is one that has, like, as we said, has an infinite level of exploration. I mean, you know, every class you can develop. I mean, I think that I'm going to get this wrong because I haven't read the chapter in Kodo recently, but doesn't Sensei talk about the half-inch worm?
Yeah, half-inch spirit.
Half-inch spirit.
1-inch worm, 1-inch spirit, or something like that.
Yeah.
But so then that's that thing, right? Is Budo, what is Budo? Is Budo about killing fools, right? Is Budo about beating people up? No. Is it the art of killing? Kind of. The thing you're killing is yourself.
Right.
The ego, the thing that's holding you back from doing the things that you want to do. Oh, they're paragliding. I would love to do that. I'm too afraid. I will try it. Oh my God, it was the greatest thing of my life.
Which is why there's no, I mean, why like Second Doshu wrote so extensively about why there's no competition.
Well, yeah, because the competition is, there's a winner and there's a loser.
Right.
And to be the winner, I will cheat. I will do something, I will become this person. And then that leads me away from the way because it's not internal. When you win whatever it is you win, for about 15 seconds, you feel really great. But then you go back to being who you were that next day, that next hour, as soon as you change your clothes.
Right. And also in competition, you have to defeat somebody.
Right.
Which you don't really want to do in the optimal Budo situation.
Right. And so, like, you know, one technique they use in wrestling, judo, and mixed martial arts is they don't shower for a month. And they eat all this garlic and do all these things so they stink really bad.
Really?
Yeah. That's a common technique. So that when they're choking you or doing all these things, you're like, oh, and you just tap. Right? But did you really win?
It's grim.
Right? Did you really win? Did you really confront yourself? Did you really do something which is uncomfortable? So that's why it comes back to the motivation. Sure, you can compete all you want, but if you compete to win, you're going to lose.
Right.
You have to compete to defeat yourself. I'm too afraid to compete, then you should compete. But if you're going to compete to get external validation,
it's not necessary.
That is not the way of Budo, right? Because Budo in the old days, Budo, Bujitsu, Aikijitsu, whatever you want to call it, you know, prior to
Post-war Aikido.
post-war Aikido was about hurting people.
Yeah.
Today, it's about developing the self.
Well, it's one of the interesting things when you look at the history of Aikido. I think it still tracks into what you're saying, but Sensei demonstrated and was integrated into the Imperial Navy, the Secret Service, all these different organizations in the Japanese government.
Well, why do you think that is?
Because it was sophisticated.
Well, not only was it sophisticated, but you want your high-level Navy person, you want your Secret Service person, you want your high-level operatives to be, it's more of an internal journey, right? If you're going to have to go off to battle, you want the person that's going to show up.
Yeah.
And Aikido teaches you how to show up. You don't want that guy, well, he's really good, but then he didn't show up. Well, at least he's really good.
Yeah.
Right? And, the same thing with like the Secret Service. Do you want some morally upstanding person protecting you, or some morally bankrupt person who's really good at killing people?
It's a really interesting. You're the first person, and this is no BS. You're the first person who I've ever heard give that interpretation of why Sensei was so integral to teaching these high-level government operatives.
I don't know. Maybe that he was just well connected. I have no idea.
But it's an interesting point.
But if you think about this idea of Aikido,
right?
Who do you want in the trench with you? A morally corrupt person who's good at killing people, or a person who you know is going to show up?
High standards.
Who has high standards, he's good moral character. Because that's the person who's going to pull you off the line when your leg is blown off.
Yeah.
The person who's morally corrupt just goes, have a nice next life, and then walk away, right? And so that's who do you really want? Who do you really want next to you? Who do you want to become? The person who drags the person to safety, or the person who says, have a good next life?
Yeah.
And like that's the thing that you like. What is this world coming to, right?
So why do you think that it's hard for critics of martial arts in general and Aikido specifically to see that aspect of Budo training? Why do you think people oversimplify what Budo is?
Because they don't want to look in the mirror, right? So you go to the bar, you go, yeah, man, six degree black belt in, Krav Maga or karate. Everyone goes, ooh, and you go, don't even think about it. I'm going to beat you up. You could flex on this whole room, and very few people will try you, right? But if you have no training, someone might try something. Someone might flex on you.
Right.
So you got to throw that out there. 1984 Open Division Champion, gold medal. What does that mean? That was years ago.
Right.
Right. So I think I told the story in another podcast where when I used to grow my hair out, the guy next to the guy cutting my hair was like a 6-degree black belt in karate back in the day. Huge dude, over 6 feet tall, big guy. And he goes, oh, you do martial arts? And he starts like doing like his katas and all this stuff while he's cutting hair. And you're like, yeah. And I was like, man, I wish I'd never said anything. And then one day he's just not there. And the next time I get my hair cut, he's not there. And I go, hey man, what happened to the John or whatever his name is? He goes, oh, I didn't tell you? And I go, no. He's like, dude, he got killed. And I go, what happened? He goes, dude, he was in a Costco, and there was a really small guy yelling at his wife and hit his wife. And then, this guy, John, he's a big dude, got in the middle of it and, told the guy to back off, and the guy clocked him, dropped him, and then he got up, shook it off and went home, fell asleep, died of a,
brain aneurysm,
brain injury. Died of a concussion. But where was his 6-degree black belt, 1984 open class gold medal, when this guy who was a foot shorter, he said, hit him, knocked him out, killed him.
Damn.
Right? So see, like the external reward, you don't wear your gold medal to the bar. Hey, not today, right? Gold medalist, 1971, in a field of 2. You're like one of my coworkers is a BJJ guy, and he goes, "Yeah, man, I got a silver medal this weekend's competition. I was like, oh, and everyone was clapping and telling him how awesome he is in the work meeting. Later, I go, hey, how many people were in the field when how many people he's like, oh, there was only 2 of us. And I was all, that's lame. But here he was wearing the silver medal to work on Monday, showing everybody.
Was this when you were at the club?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but that's the thing, right? Like, what is Budo? Budo, is it the art of killing, beating people up? No, well, yeah, it can be, but really, Budo is a way of putting the spear down, developing the self.
Yeah.
Because, as you work as an insurance broker, your boss doesn't care how many people you can beat up. He just wants those TPS reports now, right? Your wife isn't going to care how many people you can beat up. She just needs you to make sure that you put away your socks when you take them off. So see how does kicking ass help you with any of those things? You pick up the socks yourself. You write those TPS reports yourself, right? That's your boss goes, you're fired. Step into my office. You're fired, right? Like, that doesn't help you at all. But when you become a good martial artist and a good person, right? You develop your character. Yeah, your boss goes, oh man, Bill's a great guy. Gets his TPS reports done. Your wife's like, oh yeah, Mike never leaves his socks on the ground. And you go, that's where Budo benefits you.
Yeah.
So that's what it means to be Budo.
So should we stop here?
That's a good place to stop.
I think that's a good place to stop.
Thank you for watching and listening to this podcast. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.